Hi, author bosses. It's Megan. I'm coming at you live. I'm going to get us shared up in the Author Like a Boss Facebook group. If you are watching on YouTube or somewhere else and you are not a member of the Author Like a Boss Facebook group, make sure you join us over there. We have a lot of fun. We give writing and marketing tips and answer questions, so make sure to join us. And that's if you search for groups, Author Like a Boss, you will find us. Okay, we are all shared up. Welcome. I am Megan, if you don't know me. And if you do know me, I'm also Megan. Yay! And I'm the co-founder of Author Like a Boss and the Author Boss Academy with the fabulous Ella Barnard. And each week, the two of us bring you tips and tricks for how to turn your author dreams into reality. We show you how to write, market, and publish your books smarter, not harder, so that you can be more successful. If you want to get in on the fun and be able to ask us questions while we're live, make sure you join the Author Like a Boss Facebook group. If you are watching live, let me know if you can hear me, tell me where you are, what genre you write in, just reach out. I'd love to hear from you if you're watching live. Hey, Rachel. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the compliment about my earrings. I have to brag on a very dear friend of mine, Anna Hank, who made these. Well, we crafted together, which means she comes up with a cool design and I just follow every step of what she does. I like having homemade jewelry, but I am not very crafty. I don't really make stuff well, but thank you for the compliment. Anna, if you're listening, woohoo, 2 points for you. Hey, Carmen. Ooh, romance. Great. Thanks for checking in, you all, and thanks for being here. No matter what genre of fiction you write, whether it's romance or fantasy or even literary fiction, if you want to author like a boss, you have to have believable characters who jump off the page and who, get into readers' heads and hearts. And that's why all this month I'm focusing on developing strong characters in the videos that I'm doing. We'll be looking at characters from several different angles. Today I'm going to be talking about character voice and realism. Have you ever written a character who sounded stiff and awkward? I definitely have, right? Or maybe one who sounded like a caricature instead of a real person. Let me know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to have characters who feel real to your readers? How much is that something you think about? Hey, Mike. Ooh, literary fiction so far. Cool, that's one of my favorites. Hey, Dave. Different genres, always trying new stuff. Hi, author Stephanie White. Thanks for joining me, everybody. So is this something important to you all? Do you think about how can I make my characters more real? How can I create characters that my readers actually connect with? And avoid, I always think of Warner Brothers cartoons as a great example of caricatures, right? That you have just ridiculous, I have a French skunk and he only can, do French skunk things, or I have Yosemite Sam and he's just like one dimensional, right? Great for cartoons, not so great for novels. So excellent. Sounds like this is important to you. What I'm going to cover today is definitely a broader overview of this category. I think, Dave, it was you who pointed out on the alert for this live that this is a really big topic, absolutely. So we're going to get into the tip of the iceberg today, and my hope is that I'm going to give you some things to start thinking about as you develop your characters, so that at least you are tackling characters from a starting place that feels helpful. All right, last week I did a video about creating character arcs. And that is the first place to start with if you want to make your characters believable. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that character arc and plot video, go ahead and check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find us at Author Like a Boss on YouTube. Because once you have those arcs dialed in, it's going to be a lot easier to create your character voice. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How your characters act and speak in specific scenes. But again, it's going to be based on their arcs and who they are as people, things that you will have had to already figure out before you can write them in scenes. So what I'm going to be talking about in this tip of the iceberg will be 3 key, factors to keep in mind as you're creating character voice. So The first one will be the setting and genre of your book, right? Where are your characters? If you've constructed an intricate imaginary world full of knights and dragons, and your characters feel very real, and then one of them says, "Oh, totally," or "Yeah, that's cool, man," your readers will get catapulted out of your world, and they'll lose the reality. And this is something that happens to all of us. Sometimes we're just not in our stories as much as we'd like to be, and our own vernacular comes through. And I have the misfortune of actually being a Valley girl, so I have a lot of words like totally and awesome and dude in my vocabulary that it's hard to expunge. But wherever you live and however you normally speak, you may find some of those things creeping into your characters' mouths and going, "Sir Anthony wouldn't say that. That doesn't fit." Melissa says, "Whatever happened to just writing words?" Oh. Well, I'm going to put a pin in that because I actually have something important I'd like to share about that. I think that's a really powerful question. With all of this analytical thinking about your characters, how does that fit with being in flow and being in inspiration? So Melissa, I love that question. I'm going to address that after I go through these 3 analytical points. I'm going to talk about how these 2 can work together. So place. Huge thing. First thing you want to think about for your characters, where are they? And that includes the time setting as well. And it also will cover place and where your characters are in time and space is also about idioms and metaphors and the imagery we create. It's not just about a list of words you don't want to use. It's we have a list like that in the Author Boss Academy. Words to watch out for that are part of everyday speech and may not belong in your book. But it's more than just those, because think about the way we create images and our idioms and our metaphors. What do our expressions center around? What life experiences do they draw on? If you're writing a book where characters live in a rural setting, then their idioms and their metaphors will be about crops and harvests and things that are part of their lives, as opposed to a warrior culture where their expressions are about war and battle and they have metaphors about weapons. So these kinds of small details will help keep readers in your world. And you might find that it helps to invent your own expressions or your own jargon or your own slang. One of my favorite examples of this, and I've talked about it before, is the series Firefly. And in that, Joss Whedon put some real thought into what language would be like. He imagines a future where, for economic reasons, English and Chinese are the 2 main languages, the 2 dominant languages. So he has characters swearing in Chinese. And he also imagined some of our slang morphing, like he took the word goddamn and morphed it into go-ram or go-ram. So just some careful attention to how your characters would speak based on where they are and what are the dominant trends. So that's the first thing, your setting. So think about your setting for how your characters will talk. Next, think about your characters' backgrounds and their social context. Their voices are going to be influenced by things like level of education and opportunity. And also think about the power structures that are in the world you've created. Well, some characters have to be subservient to others based on age or gender or social status or class or race, etc. Like, do goblins have to kowtow to dwarves or, risk some bad treatment? Are Earth people condescending to off-worlders? Is your story set in Edwardian England where servants are treated like little more than furniture? So these kinds of considerations about background, social context, how characters interact will affect voice, and the same character is going to speak differently to other different characters or in other different settings. So that can really create the reality for readers or ruin it. And it's going to be a factor in basically keeping us in the world and helping that world feel very real, even if it's entirely of your own imagining versus not feeling real. So things to think about. Okay, the final piece, again, we're just in this tip of this iceberg about character voice and and realism. But the next piece is really key. and it's your character's outlook. Or if you're doing multiple characters, each person's outlook. So our beliefs, our backgrounds, our experiences not only shape the things we say, those also shape what we notice. And I want to give you a scenario so you can just really see this. Imagine two different characters. They're both 22-year-old women. They're both in modern day New York City. One has just graduated from Berkeley with a degree in journalism, and she's got a series of interviews set up. Like, how would she describe New York City? She's going to be walking around, and it's going to be the wonder and the excitement, maybe the skyscrapers and the energy and the buzz, right? Because her background and her experience have brought her to this moment of hope and something really cool, right? She's on the precipice of something wonderful. So think about the kinds of things that a character like that would notice, okay? And how she would describe the city, even if she's not the first person narrator, even if it's just about where she goes and what she looks at, right? Because your narrative voice is not just about, your voice is not just about, character voice transcends just the individual characters. I'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so there's one character. Now think of a different character. Same age, 22-year-old woman arriving in New York City, but she's just gotten off a Greyhound bus after running as far as she could go with the money she had from an abusive alcoholic father in rural Kentucky. What would she focus on? How would she describe that exact same city? How would things appear to her? What are the words she would use? Are things loud and noisy and dirty and grimy? Is she looking over her shoulder constantly? Is she worried that every stranger is really, bringing danger? So same place, same time, two totally different characters. And you start to think, oh, yeah, what my character would describe and the way she would describe it is really dependent on what she thinks and believes. And you're not going to do that you're not going to go in great detail for every single character in your novel, but especially for your main characters, you will. You think, well, what does this person believe in? Therefore, what would she notice and what would she talk about? Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about the elements of voice going beyond your characters, because your character voice is how your characters speak in dialogue and internal dialogue, and if they are the narrator. But they'll also determine, these questions will also determine what your characters see and pay attention to, and therefore what you as the author should show or tell readers about. So when you're thinking about character voice, it's not just, does this character have an accent? Or, how would she refer to something? Would it be simply marvelous, or would it be awesome? It's the inner beliefs that create the outer words, and also that help us pay attention to the things that we're looking at. Okay, so that's already a lot to think about, right? There are these big questions, and it is important to think about voice, but again, you're not going to go this deep for every character. But I just want to emphasize that creating realistic voice is something that helps keep your readers in the story rather than jolted out of it. And I do believe it's worth paying attention to character voice. And sometimes people go out of their way and put too much effort into making artificial differences. Right? And I wouldn't advise that. It's not that each of your characters has to sound completely different and have a totally different speech pattern, because they will probably share similarities in background and outlook. But if you take the time to think through these questions I've raised, then you'll get naturally occurring differences as opposed to artificial differences. And artificial differences are where you start to get back to caricatures. I was talking about Warner Brothers cartoon characters. You don't want to create a Foghorn Leghorn. You're like, oh, this character will be different because he stutters and has this particular accent. Nope. That's not a character voice that draws people. So really it's working from the inside out and thinking about what your characters believe and the experiences they've had and the social constructs they're part of that will bring out these pieces of voice. So if you're thinking, gosh, that sounds like a lot of things to keep track of, it kind of is. That's why in the Author Boss Academy, we have, like a whole worksheet about creating character voice, and you do it one piece at a time. You don't have to hold all of these things in mind at once. You think about their background, you think about where they are in terms of social status and structure, you think about education, you think about all these different pieces one at a time. So that it doesn't, get all into your brain and make you go crazy. Which kind of brings me back to this question Melissa asked. So Melissa said, whatever happened to just writing words? That is what I'm a big fan of. All of the strategies that I recommend to authors for planning have something in common, and that is that they're geared toward doing your thinking and your planning and your writing at different times. Because I want for you to have the experience of sitting down to draft and being able to get into your flow. And I don't necessarily think you have to look at the outline materials you've created. In this case, if you've filled out all those Author Boss Academy worksheets and you know exactly what you want for your character voice, you may not have to have those right in front of you as you're writing the scene. You may have done all the work you needed to and just created that character voice in your mind, and now you have enough of a sense that you can write from it. So absolutely, it's important to be able to go with the flow, to get into your writing zone and to be able to just write. But it's generally a lot more successful to just write when you're not just writing, you are writing having already done the homework. So Melissa, does that make sense? When you've done the work ahead of time and you've already answered a lot of the questions that might come up as you were writing, then you have the freedom to just keep going with your writing. So I know it sounds like a lot of analytical planning, but if you do it at a separate time from when you draft, you're not overcrowding your creative brain. You're giving your creative brain actually more freedom, because then she's like, oh, I know my materials. I know what I have to work with. I always liken writing to cooking. And for me, a good planning material is, I'll probably pronounce this wrong, you guys, but mise en place, because I've only read it. I don't know if I've heard it said, but it's when, if you walk into a professional kitchen, a chef has the butter and the sauce and the lemon and the knives and the dishcloth and all the chopped herbs all spread out and ready to go, so that when she starts cooking, she can just and everything is there and set up. So doing this piece first is just giving yourself the preparation so you can then be in the flow. So I hope that makes sense, Melissa. All right, if you've been feeling kind of stuck about creating character voice, or if you'd like to hear more about the Academy, Ella and I are doing a live webinar in actually less than 2 hours, and you can sign up and attend that webinar at authorlikeaboss.com/how-to. We'd love to see you there. And if you need a writing pick-me-up, I have a great recommendation for you guys. Ella has recently launched the Author Like a Boss podcast, and she's talking to successful indie authors about what they do and what works and what doesn't. And I, the other day, listened to her interview with Sherry Fink. And if you guys have not listened to this already, you must go do that. You can go to authorlikeaboss.com/podcast. And this interview, I was crying. I was like, yes, I was having all of the feels as I listened to this. And their strategy, and Sherry talks about her author journey, but much more so, it was just this real wonderful space to be in, and just to listen to somebody talking about what it's like to just go after your dream and to not let things stop you. So if you guys haven't checked that out yet, go over to authorlikeaboss.com/podcast, check out that interview with Sherry Fink. It's the one creating a whimsical world with children's books, and it's really, really fantastic. Okay. And if you like it, please do leave a review. Let Ella know what you enjoyed, what you found helpful. Just like with books, people find podcasts because of the reviews that listeners leave. So if you enjoy it, please do leave a review. All right, you all, I will be coming at you next week with more about believable characters next week at my regular time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be talking about how to use supporting characters strategically, so tune in for that. And don't miss Ella's live next Tuesday. All this month, she's talking about how to grow your email list and create super fans. There's a lot of great actionable information in her videos. And if you want to get notified when we're going live, you can go to authorlikeaboss.com/notify. And I hope we will see you later today on the webinar. But for now, thanks for watching. Hope you found this video helpful. And I wish you happy authoring. Oh, how do you find the webinar? It is at how to. Okay, I will put it in the link in the comments. Oh my gosh, I have a terrible habit of singing what I'm doing. They laugh at me at the grocery store constantly. Okay, authorlikeaboss.com/how-to is how you can find out about the webinar. All right, I will see you all later. Happy authoring. Bye.